Hi, I'm Donna Jariasha, and today I want to talk to you about crumbs. Not what you're expecting, was it? So, to me, until recently, meant one thing, and then I listened to a Matthew McConaughey speech. So he does this inspirational speech. If you haven't ever listened to them, go listen to them. They're really good. Matthew McConaughey does at the university. I think it was the university he went to. He often goes in and does this. Well, I don't know, it's often. He's been in and done speeches on inspirational speeches to the students as they're graduating from college. And he talks about crumbs as well. And it was a totally different view of my crumbs. So I want to talk about the two different types of crumbs and why crumbs are just not good for us. Okay. I mean, apart from the fact that when you eat toast in bed, you get crumbs in bed, it's uncomfortable. The crumbs I want to talk to you about are just not healthy for us. So the first crumbs I'm going to talk about are the ones that Matthew McConaughey talks about. And then I'm going to go into the one that I'm kind of like an expert on because I like these crumbs are my thing, right? So Matthew McConaughey has this list of rules for these college students on how to live a good life, right? And how to live a happy life. And one of the things is don't make crumbs. And when he's talking about crumbs, he's talking about stuff that you do that, brings guilt and shame. So being unkind to people, being cruel to people, being dismissive, cheating, lying, things that we do that are going to come back to haunt us later on and make us feel guilty later on or shame later on. Cheating on your partner or cheating with somebody else on their partner, right? Stealing from somebody, being fraudulent. Things that, maybe we even get away with it, but it's like this internal crumb when we have the memory of it and it's that like shame that we feel surrounding it. Maybe you're the sort of person who, if you're the sort of person who can do this, you're probably not watching this or listening to this, right? So, but maybe you can go out and do that sort of stuff and just really have no shame surrounding it, really have no care in the world, right? Maybe you're that like okay with yourself that you can do these things that negatively impact other people and really not give a shit. But if you are like that, you're probably not watching this. You're probably not listening to this. So crumbs are things that we do that leave a trail and that make us feel bad about ourselves. And when we feel bad about ourselves and we do these sort of things about ourselves, like it's what are we telling ourselves? If we do this sort of stuff, what are we telling ourselves? We're the sort of person who cheats, or we're the sort of person who lies, or we're the sort of person who is unfaithful. And that there, when we tell ourselves, we do stuff that reflects really what we're believing about ourselves. That's what it is. It's not just that we're telling ourselves that, but it's what we believe about ourselves. It's allowing us to do these things that then are causing us to feel shame later on. So that's the first type of crumb. Now I'm going to go into the crumbs that I'm passionate about because these are the crumbs that we accept, that we turn into gold. So it's like in relationship. When you're in a relationship and you have maybe a fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, unworthiness, need to be perfect, and you're running around and you're the one that's creating all the energy and you're like maybe an anxious attacher flowing in and you're not getting the same back, which is normal, right? When you're an anxious attacher, you're normally with an avoidant. So you're not getting the stuff back. You're not getting the same level of attention back. You're not getting the same level of affection back, right? Your wants and needs aren't important. And we're always like bending and contorting ourselves to make it okay and coming up with ways for reasons why. And that's okay because of this. And that's okay because he had a bad life or he did this or she did this or whatever it is, right? And we're making it okay. Then what we're doing is we're accepting crumbs in our life. And we're getting dropped these crumbs. And then I know me, it's very good at polishing them and like, making them gold. And I'd be like, my crumbs were more like nuts with a squirrel would have that one nut and he would like be keeping it safe, like this nut. And I would take them out and I would like hold them and I would feel really good because of this stupid friggin' little crumb, right? And it might be just like a little compliment that was thrown my way. And then, I would make it mean the world and I would hold on to that little crumb. Meanwhile, I'm like giving 1 zillion times more, right? More compliments and more. Not the compliments are important, but it's just the point here is that the energy that I'm putting in is so much more than what I'm getting back. But then the little bit that I'm getting back, I'm making mean everything. So I had this thing with my ex where my girlfriends knew that I never got compliments, and I just never got complimented. I never got fed positive things, really, right? And it was more I would get if something wasn't the way it was meant to be done. Like, it was always like searching for ways that it wasn't quite right or it wasn't good enough, and that would be held up. So, but then he would be very complimentary about me to them. And so they knew, so they would hold it for me. And then the next time we spoke, or next time, we were alone, they would go, oh, and they would hand me this crumb, and I would be like, oh my God. And I would like put it in my heart and be all glowy and feel really good about it. And I wouldn't let him know that I knew that he'd said that thing about me, right? I didn't want to ruin it. And then I would take it out, and I would, whenever I was feeling low or down, I'd remind myself about this thing that he said. Now, it's pretty fucked, all right? I'm just going to go out there and say it. It's pretty shit that I did that for 25, 26 years. I'm still doing it, really, right? Still in relationship with him because we still have a friendship. I'm sure he's not saying nice things about me behind my back anymore, but yeah, so it's pretty fucked. It's pretty shit, right? So if you're doing that, you need to stop making crumbs be gold, because you deserve so much more than that. You deserve more than crumbs. And you need to pull your energy back to start with. Okay, pull your energy back and see what's really there. And the reason I say this is because if you've watched or listened to any of my prior stuff, sorry, just some neck stretching, you may have heard my struggles and me going through recognizing my anxious attachment, and how the last 8 months has been me going into really deep process and pulling back and healing the woundings in me that was that abandonment, that rejection that was like so painful. And I was like physiologically every day just barely holding myself together to get through what I had to get done. And then I would go to bed in the afternoon, either to sleep, just to escape it, or allow myself to go into process and chase down a memory, chase down whatever it was. Because sometimes I would get to the point where I'm like, I can't serve my clients like this. So I would spend hours. One day I spent 5 hours in this painful process coming through. And it was like groundbreakingly massive what I discovered in there, right? But I got to the point where I realized, I had pulled back. And then there's this confusion now of like the whole, what I'm working through now is what am I allowed to want and need, and what do I actually really want in life? Because I felt like I was weak to want a relationship. And then it was like, I had all these like it could look like this and that, but it was really, I just wasn't really acknowledging what I really wanted. And I was working with beautiful Georgia Rose last week, and she took me through a process where I was able to and the energy that was trapped within me of me being the one that was contorting and changing through so much of my relationship. I had done this thing with my arms, and she had said, okay, stop, hold there, feel into that. And I just started crying because this energy was still inside me of me always having to be the one, that made everything okay, and having to kind of like manipulate situations so that I could still do what I needed to do, but then also have him think that it was his idea, that we didn't do things right then and we did it later, or having, it was like I was always in this constant like sympathetic nervous system, trying to not be the high maintenance wife, trying to have him and not being the one that wasn't fun, because I would have stuff planned and things that had to get done, and then he would just walk in and go, hey, let's do this, and I would have to drop everything, right? Be expected just to drop everything and just do whatever he wanted to do. And so I got really good at manipulating stuff and saying things in such a way that, oh, yeah, it looks a bit windy out there. I wonder if the weather's going to be better later on. And then he would say, oh, well, let's go out later on. And then I'd get to run around and do what I want to do, right? So there was this real contorting going on inside of me, and me not being allowed to just have what I wanted and needed was still impacting me like a few years on, right? And it was stopping me from being real with what I wanted. So we did this process, and I was just able to breathe through it and cry through it and allow it. And like, even now I still want to cry thinking about it. And then I went up to the toilet and I came back and I said, okay, I've already shifted. What I want now, I know what I want now. And what I want now is a fucking amazing relationship. And I want someone who sees me and who is comfortable enough within themselves and confident enough within themselves that they're not just going to project their wants and needs onto me, that they're actually going to be curious about really who I am and what I think about stuff and what my opinions are. And they're going to want to know what I think and not just assume that I'm just a cardboard cutout of them, which is what I've been in the past, right? And interestingly enough, the thing that happened recently that set off my fear of abandonment, my fear of rejection, and the whole anxious attacher thing, that was another example of that. Just somebody who, really good fun and got on really well, but there's no room in there for me, and never any questions about me, even if it's months since we've seen each other. Never any, how are you? What are you doing? Or never any interest. And more, if I do try and talk about something of myself, more of a pushing onto me of their thoughts and feelings within that, rather than sitting back and creating space for me to be who I am. And I want that, right? I've never had it at all. Not in my entire 51 years, not with my father, not with any of my boyfriends, not with my husband. That's what I want now. So now I'm at the point where I can create a different future because I've done the work, getting rid of the past. And it's no longer controlling me. And now I'm just in flow. I'm no longer having to control stuff to stay safe. I'm in flow and because I feel safe, right? So I was able to, and I'm going around in circles here, sorry, I hope you're following this, but this work that I've done recently with removing and realizing the crumbs and what I was doing and how I was contorting myself and allowing myself to pull my energy back more into a secure attachment, I decided to go back in. I started to go back into this other thing just to see if there's any other triggers there for me. And it was so interesting because it was just the same as it had been before, probably even better, right? Because time had passed and there's probably, he wasn't so threatened anymore. He wasn't driven into a avoidant pattern because it had been like 4 months with zero contact. So it's probably even better than it had been. But for me at the end, like when I was coming home, I was analyzing it and it just felt really, really empty. And I realized that the emptiness before had been filled by me with my crumbs. I've been like loved up, remembering little things, like maybe the way he looked at me or something he'd said or something he'd done. And I'd been making it mean all this amazing stuff about myself and all like la, 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 la. And then getting really hurt when there was just no follow-up. No wanting to see me again and being really confused, right? And it was what I was creating in that space by being that anxious attacher and flowing with my energy, and how I was so good at taking the smallest things and just making them like glow in the dark. Amazing, right? And I wasn't doing that anymore because I had done the work. And instead what it didn't impact me in the way, it didn't set off my anxious attacher. Instead, it just made me feel empty and lonely again, right? Because I'm not able to get my fix that way anymore. I'm not able to use the crumbs. Oh, this sounds like now like I'm telling you to keep your crumbs. Don't keep your crumbs. What it's allowing me to do, though, is to open up for something far more amazing in the future. Because if I'm not going to accept crumbs anymore, then what I'm going to accept is something far greater than crumbs. I'm going to have the whole loaf of bread, thanks. I want it all. I want someone who I can have amazing conversations with, philosophical discussions, who, when I'm reading a book on, a self-help book or a self-development book, I can stop and read paragraphs to them and we can have a discussion on it and opinions on it and respect each other's differences and not immediately try to make each other just be another version of ourselves. And that's so interesting, isn't it, that we do that? We're attracted to the polar opposite of us because that's really interesting and fascinating. But then it's not safe because we don't understand how they think. So then we either start trying to bully them or changing them, right? And confrontation and arguments will come in, right? Trying to make them believe or be the same as us so that we feel safe. And then if we do like henpeck them enough or bully them or like, you know, make them submissive, so they either like change their belief system or change their opinions to be the same as us because it's safe for them, right, to be a part of the herd, or they just stop talking to us, which is more what I did, then we think that now we're safe. But then we find them boring because there's no longer that polar opposite. So instead, to be able to see this person standing in front of you and to see them in their full dimensionality, not just the human like form of the body, but the spirit and the soul inside there, and to appreciate them for that and for who they are, and for them to do the same with you. I mean, that to me sounds like something that'd be freaking amazing. And to not be threatened by their differences, not be threatened by a different opinion, not be threatened by, maybe they don't believe something that's really that you really believe, and they believe something polar opposite. To not make that mean anything other than the fact that you have different opinions on something. Remembering that our reality is just created by our minds. It's not actually real. Our opinions are just opinions. And other people's opinions are just as true as ours are. And this is the duality of life, right? What we see as black, other people see as white. So what is it? Is it black or white? Or is it both? Or is it neither? Or is it none? When you can start to see through duality of good and bad, right and wrong, just into the existence of the is, the I am, then you can stop having to defend yourself all the time, because you're not always having to be right. And you're not having to be right to be safe, because you already know that you are safe. You already know that you are whole, right? And that's where beautiful lives can be created. The freedom of the soul comes in. Anyway, that's me on crumbs. Don't make them. Don't accept them. You're worth more than it. You're better than them. Go out there and work out really what you want and need in a relationship, in life in general, and then start to look at why you aren't accepting it, why you're making it okay to not have it, and then go from there. All right, I hope you got something out of this, and I will see you, or you'll hear me, in the next installment.